So we come into this world and we spend our first years growing teeth and learning to walk and talk. And then we get to a certain age and we are expected to get our feet on the ground and to develop something so we can feed ourselves. And I'm not saying that's a bad idea. I think we do have to do that. We want to get grounded and we want to know how we fit into society. But around age 40, things start to change. Something else starts to assert itself. We start to think of why we actually were born. What are we actually doing here? And we've probably had something in the back of our mind for a long time that we really thought we might want to occupy ourselves with because it was just beautiful. That's just interesting. The problem is we're not absolutely sure we have the talent to do it. We're not sure we can make a living with it. And so we may have opted to do something expedient, but around age 40, we start to become dissatisfied with that, especially if we've achieved it. Now, I realize that in the United States, the purpose of life is conceived as the pursuit of happiness. And it's nice to be happy, but I do think that often that's not the main thing about life is being happy. I think the main thing probably has to do with doing something that is full of passion. I think if we are actually maybe unconsciously really talented at something and we don't use it, we don't develop it, we don't even know about it, we will always feel dissatisfied. We'll always feel like something is missing. So around 40, a lot of people start to ask different questions. I realize that the way our civilization is organized is you're supposed to work at something money making until you retire, which is what, going to be 60 something, 70. Um, and then you're kind of worn out. You've really spent every bit of energy you had doing things that you needed to do, that were necessary to do, that gave you some kind of security and a profile in the world, but it wasn't the thing. It wasn't the real thing that you wanted to do. Um, we're complex, and very often we want to do different things at different times. And when you're young, it's appropriate to figure out how you can work in the world and make your way. And maybe happiness comes to you because you do it well. But around middle age, what happens is you may start to not be as happy with because something is there's a kind of emptiness. and your energies become more easily focused on that thing that you're made for. And you may be made for something completely impossible, something completely useless in the world. I've read about people who secretly built incredibly beautiful furniture off in their barn, and nobody really found it until they died. They had no idea that that grandpa had these aesthetic and structurally uh, incredible talents, and they kept it secret. They didn't tell anybody. Um, I was not that kind of person. I really um, focused on philosophy and art and language almost from the beginning. I never really learned how to put myself into the world, into society. I've always been a bit of an outsider. Um, and that is a type. That there's a certain kind of person who just cannot fit in. And I went through many years wanting to, trying to, but it was just not for me. And I see it now. And I see that what was happening was I was in between the calling that I had just innately from being born with it and the necessities of the world, which is also a kind of calling, especially when you're young. So I was listening to one and listening to the other, um, and it was confusing. But in the end, and for me, it was around middle age, around 40, 45, I started to get it together. And then it has been a concerted effort ever since. I have not stopped creating since that time, and I'm 85 now. So that is a good half of my life. The the years of my 20s and 30s, though, I was still reading a lot. I was still painting when I could. I did go to art school. I got a degree in art in Italy. I traveled a lot. I learned French. I lived in foreign countries. These were all things I wanted to do, and I did do them. But I settled down in around age 45 and got down to business. I don't think that's very unusual. I think that we're kind of made from these two callings. We have this innate obligation or um, original agreement, as Michael Meade calls them, where we agree to come into this life and do something specific. And yet, at the same time, especially in our early years, we have we hear a different kind of call, and that call is be be self-sufficient, be somebody in the world, do a useful, well-paid work, get married and have children, so on and so on. So we have a conflict. I mean, it's just basically two things that um, one has to be put aside for the other one to work. And we can't actually put aside the worldly calling until we're pretty established in the world. And for most of us, that happens in our 40s. But the way our society is organized, you can't really devote yourself to a passion and keep your body and soul together in any respectable fashion. Um, and so you may decide you're not going to get married, you're not going to own a house, you may not even own a car, you may not have children, you may put it all aside, all of those worldly things, because you have this one calling that you devote yourself to. And some people do that. And it is kind of fascinating. The, what some people experience at the end of their lives is disappointment. They get to a certain age and say, I didn't do what I meant to do, what I wanted to do, what I loved. And I have seen that in people in their 70s and 80s. And it is sad. It really is to see somebody feel at the end of their life they made the wrong choices and they missed their chance to do what they could have done. They knew damn well they had the talent. They had what it took to do this thing. And it was just nagging at them. And I saw that in my own father, who was an obsessive storyteller. And his youthful ambition was to be a writer, which he never did. He gave himself too many other challenges. 6 children, no college degree, not coming from a family with money or anything. He basically had to figure that out. And it took him into his late 60s to finally accomplish it. And then he was so attached to it, he couldn't make the transition. It was just too late. I think what we need to let our children know is there are two callings. And yes, you do have to respond to the world's calling. And you have a certain responsibility there. But you need to think about it when you are thinking of what kind of work you're going to do, who you're going to marry, how many kids you're going to have, where you're going to live, all of these things that may or may not feed your soul. And you need to take it seriously that you do have another part of you that needs to do something specific. And you need to kind of listen to that and figure out what that is. And then start to give time to it, start to study it, start to practice it. And even if you have to do work elsewhere and do other things, you can keep your soul alive by doing what the furniture maker did just in the privacy of his own barn that nobody ever saw. He made beautiful things, and he knew that he absolutely had to do that. I think that that is a huge asset. We, when we know we have something in us, we actually hear that calling, we are lucky. Even though it's a big task, it's a big responsibility, and it's not easy to do. It's going to be hard, yeah, but it's a kind of difficulty that you end up loving. You love the challenge. I just think this is a human thing. Everybody's got it. So why don't we think about that?